Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to a special Historicon edition of No Dice, No Glory, with your co-hosts, Mitch, the Meta Reed, and he who shall only be known as Chairborne. Let's throw it right over to the guys.
Well, thank you very much, Sean, and I am here joined by my tag team co-host in the second chair, Tom Chairborne Mullane. Hey, Tom.
It's good to know that name is stuck for a full year.
Yeah. So it has been a full year because where are we right now?
We are where that name originated, here at the Team Yankee Nationals, and this is the second time we've put this on.
Yes. Now, last year was at beautiful Fredericksburg, Virginia, but this year we are in Lancaster, PA.
It's a lot less hot here.
It is a lot less hot here, and I don't know, maybe the air conditioning is working. It was so hot last year. And look, so people who don't remember last year, Tom was swallowed whole by a chair. It didn't happen this year, but we, once again, at No Dice, No Glory, are hosting the Team Yankee North American Nationals.
Now, last year we had 48, I believe.
Yes.
And this year we thought we were going to have 36.
And we ended up having 40.
And we had 40 because we had drops, but even with the drops, the people walking on, we wound up with more than we expected. This is a pretty good turnout.
It is a really good turnout. And, you know, you look around and you have the Able Company guys. You have a lot of other guys. But I see some new faces here.
I do, too. Yep.
Which is awesome because, you know, there's some... Look, we play this, we paint, we travel. There's got to be some excitement for this. But we really tuckered these guys out today. Like, we did something a little different this year.
We did.
We made it 4 rounds, 2 hours each. So we actually got the rounds off in rounds 2, 3, and 4, 10 minutes down in between each round. And guys were hustling between tables. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, people are sweating even with the air conditioning on because that's a tight timetable. And people were playing to the wire in pretty much every game I saw.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about this event. So it was 64 points, all books were allowed, and we actually had 2 Canadian players.
Yeah, they managed to get their stuff paid. I think they were so excited. They had it painted before those books came out, and they took advantage of the fact that it came out.
Yeah, and it was also cool, too, is I saw some Dutch.
I didn't see them yet. I gotta check that out.
Eric Mylan had some Dutch.
Okay.
Some other guys had some Canadian support. I believe one guy had some Anzac tanks.
I saw a lot of the experienced players taking advantage of the fact that they could take that allied formation. I saw that a couple times.
And, you know, I think there is an allied formation that guys are starting to like, and I think it's that U.S. Recon unit.
Oh, yeah.
It is, 14 points for... It's a ton of Humvees.
I think it's like 12 to 14 Humvees, something like that, yeah.
A lot of guys are having that. So let's, before we get into how today's going, let's talk about the differences 1 year makes. Last year, 48 players, 20-something of them were West German. It was 100 points.
Yeah, we had a lot of theories about why that was. But because it's 100 points, I think most of the West German players, with the exception of me, because I'm terrible at building lists of any kind, took Leo 2s. We saw a lot of Leo 2s. We saw some bulked up martyr formations. But, yeah, you saw a lot of West German tanks. And at 64 points, that's not going to fly. So yeah. I think I didn't see a single Leo 2. I don't know if you did, unless you saw the Dutch bring in any of them.
No, you know, I didn't see any. There may have been 1 or 2, like with the Aufgerungs, you could take the platoon of 2. But we only had 4 West German players this year, which was like night and day from last year. Stripes is well represented this year.
Yep.
Red Thunder is well represented this year, because Red Thunder was just coming out a year ago.
That's true, yeah.
So you see like a good representation of the newer books. Like I said, Free Nations is represented despite its only being out for less than 2 months. A lot of interesting formations out here. So I think with the lower points, you're going to see less West Germans. But what I'm also seeing is the Horde.
Yes.
That people, I think people acknowledge. So when the 2 first books came out, you can run 48 BMPs, and I think that was crushing people, especially since the Americans didn't have a lot of answers for that. Then I think as the West Germans came out and the British forces were able to take on the Horde, and now here a year later we're at lower points, but a lot of stuff like scimitars, scorpions, the U.S. Recce Platoon, Marine Corps Rifle Platoon. These things can take out the Horde, and the Horde's not doing as well.
I think at the higher points, there's this temptation to take the big-ticket items because you know that you can't take them at these lower point levels. So I think even if they wouldn't have been the best tactical choice for people to grab, they grab them anyway because they can.
Right.
In this case, they're forced to try something different with those little doodads you talked about, scimitars, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it works. That's what works against the bimps.
Right.
So we've seen a lot of 4-3s, like Pyrrhic victories for some of these little Horde armies that haven't done as well as I would have expected them to do. They can't bring the numbers like they used to.
So let's transition from the Horde to the Horde Master. So the game, and actually doing 4 rounds, I think is cool. It's exhausting.
It's
I'm looking
a lot.
around. There's a lot. But it's the repeat of the same final pairing from Cold Wars, which is James Copeland and Peter Zerfi. Zerfi won that game. He won all of his games 6-1. Today, he's won all of his games 4-3. James has also done very well. I think he has 2 6-1s. But I asked Pete, what do you think it is? And he goes, the lower points total makes you take well-balanced list with a lot of stuff that can shoot, and it's harder to run the Horde. The other thing, too, about running the Horde is I think you need some skill to run it, and he is very skilled at it. Is there anything else you've picked up from walking around today?
I've seen almost no air because the AA is cheap enough that they can grab what they need to grab. Okay. I think the Horde is deceptive because people think it's easier to run than it is.
It's hard to run.
I can put a pile of stuff on the table and it's going to bulldoze everybody.
Yeah.
And that's just not really how it goes.
Yeah.
But I'll also say about just the tone of the tournament overall, as we get more into the talking about the nitty-gritty of the lists,
right,
is the pacing has turned this into quite the sporting event. You were commenting to me earlier that, you've been live streaming this stuff on the Free Nations webpage. And we've had people commenting all over the place asking who's in the lead, what lists are there.
I wish I was there.
I wish I was there.
James Copeland's wife is, let me see.
Is she cheering him on?
She's cheering him on. She's like this. Let's go, baby. This is Joe Copeland to her husband. You got this. I love you with 2 hearts. And then James goes back 6-1 on the backs of my Scorpions. And then 32 minutes ago, right around the time we started, it's, yay, I told you you had it. Wow.
That's the most supportive spouse I've ever heard of. I don't think my wife would ever be following a live stream of one of these games.
Yeah.
I think it's a miracle that I can get anything painted at all. So
yeah.
Good for him.
Tom Burgess is hey, I've been following it, and it's fun. I mean, I see a lot of tired people around here, but look, you come here, and you put it all out.
This looks exhausting, and I wasn't even playing. In fact,
you weren't even here most of the day.
Most of the time, because I was trying to sell hills that nobody wanted. The hills are not alive. That was a lie.
It's
not accurate.
And that's to pay for the No Dice, No Glory Home for Wayward Women, located in Charlestown, West Virginia.
Oh, good Lord.
Not too far from the bunker. And we need to raise money for those wayward women.
That is inaccurate. It is not in any way true.
So what were the money for the hills going for?
The money for the hills was going to models that I don't need to buy. And so I'm just not going to buy them. Yeah. I sold a lot of the blisters that I had, but I don't know. It was low crowd. It was very busy in the morning, and I snuck in with a table there with a couple friends of mine. And then the afternoon, it was just dead. There's nobody there.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bigger last time when they did it at night, at 9 o'clock at night. And I got to be honest, I went through the vendor hall for 2 hours yesterday. I bought a $5 card game. What did I buy today? Oh, at Wally's Basement, I bought 2 Command & Colors games.
Okay.
The Prussians or Russians or whatever that is. And then I just got Command & Colors Great War. But I'll tell you, though, I think the guys that are here really played some great games today. There was some I don't know. I mean, you can just look around. This is game 5, the rubber match.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Zerfi Copeland game. Even though, when people hear this, will be out. These are 2 of the best players you have. I would say almost up and coming because neither of them played last year in Team Yankee Nationals.
No, I don't think they did.
I don't think they did.
I think Copeland played in the doubles, and then he played in the mid-war?
Yeah, his first time really playing a Team Yankee event was when we made him play. I gave him my British,
Okay.
During Cold Wars, and they're playing for the championship. But other than a few exceptions, not everybody flatline for every single game.
No.
And a lot of it is once again my opinion, and as everybody out there knows I'm wrong a lot, is with the new list there is a learning curve.
Yep.
And people have to pick it up. I like the fact that the lower points, that we're not seeing the West Germans. Personally, and I've said this before, I think playing the West Germans is hard.
No, so I was laughing about this. So I brought my army, and I offered for people to play it. And I don't know if people just didn't see the thing in time, or if they realized that playing would be too much of a pain in the butt. But my West German list was a Leo 1 company. Everything's integrated into the formation. It had artillery with the rocket trucks, but that's a finessey list.
It is.
James Best Jr. basically had the choice to either play that or a more simple East German type of list. And he thought about it for about 2 minutes, and then he said, no, I'm done with the West Germans. That's fine. I'm going to take the East Germans. So I see what Pete's playing. Pete's playing a variation of the list he played last year. He's got the T-55s, and he's got the BIMPs. What is James playing? He's got all the little British scimitars and stuff?
It's British infantry, not much unlike what he plays for Flames of War. And then we have Chris Jackson over here. Chris Jackson, if you're next, do you need us for anything?
I was just wondering why there were cards on the table.
Why there were cards on the table? Because these two guys had enough.
They had enough. They're exhausted.
They're tired. They're tired. Which I got to tell you, and we're here with George Purdy, who plays near you in Danbury.
Yeah.
George, come here. You want to say hi? No, he doesn't want to, really. He goes, we all got faces for radio, George. But, George, just for a second, I'm just going to ask you one question. It's an easy one. It's okay. Come on in and get up here. Hey, how you doing, George?
Not too bad. A little tired.
We got to get you right in there.
Not too bad. A little tired.
So, we're not going to give you a hard time after today about the last round, but is this your first Team Yankee tournament?
First here, but I started playing when it first came out.
And you're here. Tom probably talked up Historicon. What do you think?
Great. Have had this much fun since we did D-Day and marketing.
Yeah, that was a blast. That was great.
As he's saying, it's great. We're handing him $1 bills. And so he came down, and it was cool. I handed you two guys the awesome objective guys are getting today.
It is.
Yes.
Very good.
It's a cool one.
Good.
Is that going to be painted on the table? Please, let's not see it in eBay.
It will probably be painted to put out, but I have 4 other objectives to do too. So.
But it's from the movie Stripes with Sergeant Holka.
Oh, trust me, I know that movie because in the movie the Gamma Go is a communist vehicle.
It is.
The Army, we always called it a communist vehicle.
Because of the movie Stripes?
No, because we thought it was a communist vehicle and the movie confirmed it.
Yeah, I used to call the Hemet. The Hemet looked kind of odd too. So what were you running today?
An American recon list with American Marines Rifle Company, and I had British Lynx Air Support with Salons. How'd
that work?
A lot of dead tanks. The only one who really did me any damage was Chris Johnson because I was really out of place with Chris, and he just walked up on me, and I couldn't get enough shots.
So let's go through, and if you want, we don't have to mention these scores, but you played Chris Jackson, who's you do understand he is the reigning Flames of War National Masters champ.
I felt bad as soon as I paired you up because Mitch turned to me when we saw the pairings, and he's like, do you know George? And I'm like, George isn't going to want to know me after I pair him up with Chris Jackson.
Yeah,
so
he said that.
I'm just gonna hand him this card and quietly walk away.
Yeah.
No, Jackson killed me in the first round last year, bulldozed me. So you're not alone.
The good thing about Chris is afterward, he basically showed me a few tricks that I didn't know on how to keep him back.
One of the nicest guys.
Yes. And we also played Cliffs yesterday in the doubles.
Okay.
Kevin Dietz and I came down together. He's my friend and Tom's friend.
Yep.
And we played him in the first game, and it was a bloodbath.
And then you were up against Jeffrey Reister.
Reiser?
What was he running?
He was running a BMP list with T-64s and a recon scout list.
So you played Chris Jackson's Soviets,
Right. He had all BMPs and artillery.
And then you played Jeffrey's Soviets.
Right.
And then you played Brengol Majewski's
East Germans.
East Germans.
Right.
And they all were similar lists.
True.
But you went 1-6-1-6, but you learned how to beat that horde 6-1 in the last game.
Right.
So what went right in the third game then?
The third game actually turned around for me because the player hung out in the open too much, and I was able to use the Milans more effective. And his armor couldn't stop me. Every time I hit him, it was like, I can't stop it. Straight through.
This is the T-64s?
He was playing T-55.
Oh, the T-55s. These are the East German guys. Okay.
So they went right through his armor. And then the toes had a blast, too. I just took everything out.
Now you and Kevin, so this is the first time that we've ever had this many people from my club in Connecticut get to come down. Because we always talk about it, and then it never quite works out. But we finally lucked out this year.
Well, yeah, last year we wanted to come, and we had it all set up, and poor Kevin had to back out for financial reasons. Not so much money, but school.
I think I was in the same boat he was,
Yeah.
and I didn't go either, yeah.
So he had to work for them, so we couldn't go. And the year before that, we wanted to come down, and I had to back out because I had to work.
Yeah,
I couldn't
yeah,
get
yeah.
the vacation days. This year, it worked out great for both of us.
I've been looking for Randy, but I can't find Randy. I'm going to point this out on the radio because I know that you can't see through the radio. But George's
he's
stuff
pointing north.
I'm pointing north at George's stuff because George's stuff is beautifully painted. He's got little cool basing on his dudes. His tanks have the really neat U.S. camo that I don't feel like doing because I would drill my eyes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just use the airbrush. I feel like that's the lazy man's way to
Oh,
make
and
it look like you're better
speaking
at painting.
of great painting, yes, your stuff looked great.
All hand-painted, by the way.
All hand painted, as
don't know
opposed
how
to
to
machine
airbrush.
painted.
I don't know how to airbrush.
I don't even
figured
own
it
an
out.
airbrush.
Yeah.
But we
Kevin
actually
showed me last night, but I have absolutely no clue how to do it. I wouldn't have the patience. I just hand-paint it all.
Yeah, I mean, I like doing stuff by hand, if you know what I mean. So we judged the painting. I forgot who won, and hopefully Dave Griffin from Battlefront comes back to tell me because we have plaques.
Wasn't this Andrew? Was it Andrew Hobson?
Yeah, it was either him or Chris.
I'll make a note to mention it when we're actually sure. 'Cause
Yeah.
I didn't write it down, so I'm not sure.
So let's talk about everybody gets the EM50, and we have these beautiful plaques.
Yes.
So we're going to get pictures up on the website with that. Same as last year. So the British, it's Thatcher on the Rhine.
Yep.
U.S. has won one for the Kipper. East Germany, the Stasi Compliance Award. I think the Soviet is You Betcha Gorbachev.
Of course. Yeah. Okay.
The West German
is
the Hasselhoff.
I wanted that so bad.
The Hasselhoff.
And I wasn't even close. There were too many West German players last time. I would have had a chance this time. There's 5 of them here.
Oh yeah.
I would have been able to submarine my way to victory.
Right. And if you finish 1, 2, and 3, you don't win the best faction.
No, you don't. No.
Yeah. So it's
That's how I usually win something, is by default.
Yeah, like a sport. Oh, we have to get sportsmen too. Well, we got a lot to do. I don't know why we're sitting here yapping.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, it's the new award is for Free Nations. It's a Freeloader Nation.
Is that seriously the award? Did you make them name it that?
I did. Yeah.
You gonna pull this plaque up for me?
Yeah, it is. It says Freeloader Nations in there. It's we could start putting some of the hardware out. It actually may be this one right here. Nope, it's not that one. We got Best Painted. What do we have?
That's for you.
It was Freeloader Nations.
Freeloader Nations.
So, which is
not
funny.
mine, that's what it is.
It's funny because we named it because Tom Tom's very politically savvy, and he wanted to have something that kind of represented the POTUS's trip to NATO this week. And he essentially did call them freeloaders. Now, we don't talk about religion or politics on this show because pretty much this gaming is a religion that has politics.
I get to teach social studies in Brewster all day, so I look at this as a week off from
Freeloader
having to talk
Nations.
about any of that stuff at all.
Now, had this have happened later in history, we probably would have said this pay your 2% nation award. But yeah, let's just get off the political topic. But yeah, I think it's. I'm
impressed that you managed to trick them into actually printing that on a plaque. Kudos
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah, Freeloader Nation. And, you know what it is? I don't think there's anybody Canadian here, Dutch, French, or Anzac.
No, and I guess...
And I don't think any of them will ever listen to this podcast because we only have like 3 people listen. George, you ever listen to this guy's podcast?
Once a great while, I like this.
So the other one is not really.
No.
Oh, what was your favorite podcast he did? George is like, I gotta go, man.
Actually, I read all of your. Oh, I'm sorry. I read all of your.
So you're the guy.
I read all the Dutch Dice and Glory stuff. I love reading it.
So I told you there was one person, Mitch.
Yeah, I really want folks to get out there. Like, I looked at our iTunes comments, and we have 2, and they're very nice.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you.
So if you're listening to this, go on iTunes and like us. And then, check out our Facebook page and, of course, hit our forums. But, it sounds like now that we're talking, we have to get to work. So and George, thanks for coming on.
Oh, not a problem.
What was the highlight of today's event? Leaving.
Meeting all the new people and having a great time and learning a lot.
Yeah. And Chris Jackson's awesome for that.
He is very awesome.
Yeah, and you guys could talk Army.
Yes.
Because
and I found a lot of other veterans here.
Yes,
yeah,
we are vet friendly.
Yes.
And for those who aren't, we still appreciate all you've done.
Mitch. Thank you, Mitch, so much.
All you've done for it.
No, every time he says something in military time, I quietly look it up on my phone because I'm that bad at math.
So let me tell you something about military time. I really never got great at telling it, even though 20, almost 30 years, right? It's even on my phone. So Dave Griffin goes, "When does the last round start?" I go, 7:30. And he just rolled his eyes, but he was cool, man. He didn't say F you and leave. And I said, whoa, I meant 17:30. Like, I have redlexia, which is anyway. And it's going to end at 21:30 Zulu.
No, I see the look on your face every time you tell me. You got the smirk on your face, like,
Nah.
I know he doesn't know what I'm talking about.
Or what about some of the acronyms?
Oh, yeah. So he'll send out these emails that have all these military acronyms in them, and it's almost as bad as teaching, because teachers have acronyms too.
Yeah.
And they're garbage.
Give me a teacher's acronym.
Ruler.
A ruler?
Ruler stands for I don't even know what it means.
That's
how
it's
bad
something
it is.
that measures something.
No, it's an emotional literacy task force thing that we're supposed to employ. What's another one?
I mean, what high school is this? Adolf Eichmann Junior High?
IEP, Individual Education Plan.
Yeah.
504.
Oh, wait, that's when somebody's committed.
That's disabilities, physical disabilities.
Yeah, I know that. Go ahead.
No, I think we had to employ 7 or 8 new acronyms this year.
Priapism, is that an acronym you use?
But yeah, you're all cons, or I was like...
All con, yeah.
All con. And I'm like, what does that mean? Is that like a deodorant? Because
it is.
Are you telling me that I smell?
Snafu, foobar, cranium's up, because you can't say heads up anymore.
Are we going to calculate any of these points?
No, we're going to start calculating points. So I'd like to thank George for hanging out with us.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
George is like, he's going to hit a massage parlor after this. Say, hey, we're going to turn it back to Sean. Sean, first of all, I texted him when I got here yesterday. I miss him dearly from these events.
I miss Sean, too.
And he is in Cleveland. So we're going to turn it over to him for a few minutes. He's going to tell us what he's been up to. Take it away, Shawnee boy.
Well, thanks for asking, Mitchy Poo. I've been up to a bunch of totally random stuff. So as a lot of you know, I moved out to Cleveland, and so I'm no longer in that awesome Nova wargaming community. And sadly, I haven't found a lot of wargaming to do here in the Cleveland area. About a year ago, I started playing a lot of role-playing games, got back into playing D&D and some other stuff, and out of that grew kind of a new side project for me. I am one of the founders and showrunners at Welcome to the Party. Welcome to the Party is all about creating an inclusive and open atmosphere for folks who want to learn how to stream or play role-playing games, either online or around their table. We've got an active Discord community, and we stream games on Twitch 7 nights a week, most weeks, between 5 and 7 nights a week, nearly on every week, yeah. And It's everything from Dungeons and Dragons to Shadowrun, if you know what that is, to the Fate RPG system, to a newer system called Blades in the Dark, which I run, which is pretty cool as well. It's kind of, if you've ever played the video game Dishonored, or if you like steampunk or stuff like that, it's sort of that world of role-playing. We've got about almost 200 members in the community now, and are pretty active on the social media scene. So if you're interested in catching any D&D stuff, any role-playing stuff, you can find us at twitch.tv/Welcome Party RPG, and on Twitter the same, at Welcome Party RPG. In terms of wargaming, if you happen to be in the Cleveland area or the Northeast Ohio area, and you're looking for someone to throw down some Team Yankee or some By Fire and Sword or some Flames of War or really anything that you've seen me play in the last few years, hit me up. My Twitter is at ThrockPlays, and yeah, that's what's going on here, man. Lots of D&D, and sadly not too much wargaming. With that, I'm going to throw it back to y'all. I know next up we have a very special interview with Mitch and General Glenn Goddard and a certain other miniature company who we've been hoping to talk to for quite some time. So with that, I'll throw it back to the guys.
Hey, well, thank you very much, Sean. So we actually are here at Historicon, Glenn Goddard and I, and here we have an interview that we've been talking about for a long time online. And we're here with Michael Tunez. He's the lead designer for that game that we talk about from Firelock Games, Blood and Plunder. Michael, welcome.
How you doing, guys? Nice to be here.
Well, we're fanboys of this game. We dig this game. Tell us how this whole thing came about. Like, why are you here?
All right, so kind of the story. I won't make it too long, but the
Don't worry,
story
we got
Blood
plenty
and
of
Plunder.
bandwidth for this.
Yeah, so I've been miniature gaming, since like middle school. Started out with BattleTech, moved on to other things as I got older, and I've always been into pirates and sailing and the sea and all kinds of things like that, and basically just like colonial history and colonial like Americas and Caribbean.
Uh-huh.
I'm of Cuban descent, so all that history is super interesting to me, as well as the U.S. history in Florida and everything else. So. I was playing a game called Legends of the High Seas for a little while. I thought that was pretty cool. I was like,
yeah.
you can play a pirate miniatures game. I'd never even considered that. And I was like, I'm in. So I started playing that for a bit. And then, as we all know, GW Historical, or Warhammer Historical, whatever it's called, went under. And that stopped being made. And as is typical in my local shop, if a game goes under, it goes away. Just people will stop playing it. So I thought that was kind of a shame. And I was like, maybe I figured there'd be another rule set come around at some point. But one day on a trip to St. Augustine, which I go to at least yearly because I love going there, and it's always inspiring to me. I was visiting one of the forts and just picked up a set of 18th century playing cards.
Oh.
Right? And I was just thinking these would be really cool to use in a game of some kind. And one thing led to another, and I was really inspired by the trip, the whole colonial history and everything. And I said, maybe I could try my hand at putting a game together. And then a few years later, here we are sitting in Historicon and
how many years?
And hustling it to people.
First of all, it's not hustling. How many years?
Yeah.
How many years are we talking about? Is your equity, blood and sweat here?
So, all told, probably about 4. So when I started working on it, it was like maybe I'd work on it for like a weekend every other month, just playing around, getting ideas, and then by the time it got to then kind of when it all came together was like right before we started. Me and my partner Alex Aguila, we got together and put it, and just said let's. I played with him, and he's got a lot of business experience. And he's like, man, I've always wanted to start a game company. Let's do this thing. And I was like, all right. And then so from that point, which is when I really started designing it seriously, and it changed a lot since then. Was about 3 years ago now.
Wow.
Roughly, yeah.
Now, what went into, obviously, everybody thinks they're a game designer, a lot of us out there, but to actually create a company and produce stuff, how did that process work? Because I don't think a lot of people understand the difficulty behind all that.
Yeah, well, I will tell you that we legitimately just got really lucky. Our joke around the office is our motto is Firelock Games. We do everything right by accident because we just stumbled into things. We're just like, well, I don't know, let's just do this and just see what happens, and it kind of works out. But really, it is a ton of work, and And it's, I mean, if not for the fact we did better, much better than we expected in our first Kickstarter, and we were able to float a lot of mistakes on our success. So had we not done as well, it would have been tougher. We would have probably had to front money and fix it. Because we screwed up tons of stuff along the way as far as production and just, we had no idea. Literally, day 2 of deciding we were going to make a business, we went on Google and just said how to make miniatures. And just typed that in.
No kidding.
And just started going from there. Literally no clue, no experience. And we just kind of tried to get, we sought people out, tried to get some advice, tried to figure out what to do. And little by little, we bought, 2 weeks later, we bought a spin casting machine and started getting some guy to sculpt models for us, and just little by little just pieced it together and figured it out. But there is definitely a ton of work you never really expect. And just little mundane things that you take for granted in a game. Or sometimes months and months of work.
What was the most frustrating for you?
The most frustrating is by far dealing with our good friends over in China. Getting printing and stuff done over there.
They may not be our good friends too much longer.
You've just got no control, And we're not big enough to have representatives to fly out to China and make sure to get stuff done.
Yeah.
So we just, I was doing the best. What I would do is I would just, like with this current book, when things weren't, I saw the wheels were not turning, and I was just on the phone calling them as late at their time as possible that I knew they'd answer, so that it would be like annoying to them, and just call them every single day, like, hey, where are we at? What's going on? And you could tell they were getting agitated. And I think if not for that, we might still be waiting for the books to come in. But still, it's not the same as having somebody there. But it's, and with all the delays they had, as well as our own delays this year, it was just crazy. So that stuff is frustrating because you kind of don't have any control. You just got to sit back and wait, and your months and months and months of work is just, you're just sitting there on your hands, and it's maddening. So,
that must be frustrating sometimes to explain to people on your Kickstarter as like, well, we're going to have it by this date. And I think you've done better on your second Kickstarter where you kind of said, this date theoretically, and then you've been very good about explaining if there's any delays. And I think that the fan crowd is good.
Yeah, we try to. And then sometimes there's just so much going on to try to get it done that sometimes we'll miss updates or stuff like that because we're just so focused on getting it out. And then on top of that, it's actually been much more challenging this time because at the same time it's a little better because we're actually selling stuff. Last time we had no capital coming in, right? Because we have just the money from the Kickstarter, and we had to float all of our mistakes. Like we had to get some books printed locally because the books, just getting them done in China, we would have been like probably 8 months late had we waited for the ones in China. So we're just like, we can't do that. So we just spent a bunch of money, got them printed locally. But
throwing out the PDF was awesome. Yeah. It was awesome. So Glenn and I, if asked, we'll explain what's Blood and Plunder. It's the coolest pirate game I've ever played. It's the coolest game you're not playing. But how would you describe Blood and Plunder for the folks out there?
So the marketing for Blood and Plunder, right, is always focused on the pirates and that it's a pirate game. But to me, it's really a lot more than that. To me, Blood and Plunder is a historical colonial skirmish game that plays land and sea seamlessly, and that pretty much that pretty much covers the description, right? But what I like about it, and what to me stands out, is that it's a very tactical game that's very simple to play and pick up and learn. And unlike a lot of other games where there's a lot more beer and pretzel luck elements involved, this is more of a actual, chess match, if you will. Like there's a lot of decisions to make, and small little mistakes can really cost you big.
I can't beat his Spanish guys.
Yeah, those lanceros, they're something else. But I think to your point though, it's easy to learn the basics, but it is difficult to master.
Yes.
There's a lot of subtleties with how you do the cards and the action. So it's not a beer and pretzels game. It really is a strategy game that you want to study and get into the details, but it's not hard for a beginner to pick up, as shown in your demos that you're giving out here today.
Right. Yeah, and that was an important thing to us now, and that was a really difficult thing to accomplish, really, with the when you're trying to seamlessly merge a naval game and a land game. There's obviously going to be a lot of exceptions.
Right? I don't know how you guys do that so well,
but
you do.
You're the first game that I've ever seen do that. I've seen other pirate games, because it's very endemic specifically to the pirate period of ships and men on land, but they've gotten either one or the other right, but not both.
Right.
And you really succeed.
And there's a third layer now. the Army scale, right?
Right. Yeah, and that'll blend the land and sea as well. And yeah, that was the main thing we really focused on with the game. Is like, how could we make this work the same on a ship as on land? And you'll see a lot of things that people might find a little odd that will be evidence of that, right? Like, so when you get into a melee, you just need one model to make contact, right? Instead of the whole unit. Because if you made it so that every model in contact can only roll, then you have to make an exception on the ships, right? Because it'll be a mess if you did it that way.
Right. Physically, you just can't.
It'd be physically a mess. So we got to make some considerations for that kind of stuff. And it still works. It's not a noticeable difference, but it does lose a little bit of that skirmish granularity that you see in some games. But I think the kind of the win-loss there is kind of goes more toward the win side, and makes it very playable and approachable. So.
Yeah, I love reading rules, and the naval rules a little bit for you that intimidated me a little bit. So I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just do the land portion, because this is the man that got me into the game. I'm pointing at Glenn. You can't see it on your radio.
Right.
But I ended up finding a sloop, and I picked it up, and I went to a LGS, and they were like, hey, we're doing naval. Fine, teach me how to play that. And it was so much fun. And it was almost like I have these models, and I know what they do here. I throw them on a boat, and it's like using the same models for a different game. I thought that was. Have you done the naval yet?
I've done naval land, but I haven't done just pure naval. But the naval land is where it's really interesting, though, because I can't think of another game that does both together at the same time. And you'll have naval gunfire supporting your assault on the land and trying to row guys out from the ships on longboats to land on the shore, and they're getting shot at. And I've had just some epic games doing that. Yeah,
and I've seen other games that have done it, but always one's kind of an afterthought of the other, right? The game's going to be focused on one or the other. And we specifically focused on not doing that, on putting just as much attention into both aspects, so that and make it feel seamless, make it feel like you're playing the same game rules-wise, even though tactically the three versions are like land, sea, and amphibious. The way you've got to think about what you're doing is always going to be different, right? So it gives you definitely a lot of replayability and a lot of cool options. And there's you can just play this game, you can play this game every day of the week, and every day could be different, a completely different type of battle. So.
Yeah. Now, in the latest Kickstarter, which is coming out shipping any day now.
No Peace Beyond the Line.
Yeah.
Right.
You've included the Dutch, some more Native Americans in there. But where so after you get this out, of course, everybody's going to be clamoring for what's next.
Right.
Why don't you want to talk about where you're going after this?
Sure. So what's next for Blood and Plunder?
We love spoilers, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I love giving them, so that's great. I get in trouble all the time, but it's fine. So it's the next for Blood and Plunder. The next things that are coming is we're going to move the game from the 17th to the 18th century. So obviously all your 17th century stuff is still good. So if you want to fight across those time periods, it's all still legal and okay. But we will introduce some optional things, especially for tournaments and stuff like that, where you can set dates of what you can play, right? So, if you're a purist and you don't want any of your, you don't want any of your American Revolutionary Navy fighting, fighting some Dutch privateers from the 17th century, you can set a date limit for the games, right? So
we're going to see Continental Americans?
Absolutely. That's one of the things I'm most excited about doing. But we're going in progressive.
You're not alone.
Yeah. We're going from the first expansion will be early 18th century. So what most people would consider the golden age of piracy. So we're going to have all the famous pirate characters like Blackbeard and Jack Rackham and Anne Bonny and Mary Read and all those guys. And we're going to also move. We're also going to start but we're going to start adding plastics to our line.
Oh, okay.
So multi-part plastic kits for the troops, not so much for the ships yet. We're going to have a 2-player starter set with all plastic, and that may have ships in it as well. We're actually thinking about we're trying to price it out now and figure out if it's doable, but we're trying to do 2 smaller sloops, probably about the size of the barks, to do a Blackbeard and versus Maynard themed starter set.
Wow.
2-player starter set.
Yeah.
Since that was a really small engagement, it's like the perfect kind of introductory thing.
Yeah.
And shorter term, we've got some smaller things we're adding. We're currently putting together a weapons kit So it's a little metal sprue of different types of weapons and stuff. No PCB on the line is going to add a lot of options for how you can upgrade your troops and stuff. So it'll have a little set of upgrade cards in it and some little metal weapon sprues. So that they're going to add to the ones that are in the unit deck that's coming for the new one. And you can, so especially for the Native Americans, they've got a ton of options. You give them pistols and muskets and bows and thrown weapons and things like that. But some of the other units as well. Like some of the sailors, you can upgrade them to muskets or blunderbusses or things like that.
Yeah, and in the new one, I
right
noticed have the European sailors, which is kind of cool.
And then there's going to be like musket rests in there. So if you want to give the troops heavy matchlocks,
Wow.
you can put a musket rest, and now that'll count as a heavy matchlock. So if you want to do it all WYSIWYG and nice, it's going to be a cool kit. We're also going to work on some of the. You'll see in the new book, those of you who have it already, you've seen some sketches in there, some units that don't have models.
The pikemen.
Yeah, so pikemen will probably be the first one we do. They'll be armed with lances, but we're going to set them up so that if you want to put pikes on them, it'll be really easy to just clip those off, drill through, and add a wire pike.
Yeah, it's actually something interesting I think people out there should know. So I got the English starter, the English box, and then I'm like, but I've never run English. I've usually run pirates.
Right.
And then I'm like, I could add all these French. So now I could do French. And, I think the models for the Caribbean militia is the same as the veteran freebooters.
Right. Yep.
What is kind of neat is you are not limited to one nationality because a lot of the models are interchangeable.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously not with the Spanish Lanceros and the natives, but it's really kind of neat because Glenn and I were talking on the way down here. The models are beautiful.
Thank you.
It's your guys' first, the caster's first attempt at it.
Right, yeah.
And they're really good. So, I love going on to Easy Army where you guys do have where you can make forces, and I love playing around with little forces.
Cool.
And it's kind of neat that you could do that in this, but I want every force.
Yeah, and we've got a new one now. That we've put together. It's a new builder includes all the new stuff.
I saw and
it's a little more
Facebook,
up to date.
right?
The guy who's putting it together plays Blood and Plunder very often. I think it's all he plays for the most part. So his name is Tom Pace. He's done an excellent job, and the Easy Army one's great. And Greg Sitter's done an awesome job with that. But he's got a lot. He does that for free, which is awesome. And he's also got a ton of other ones he runs.
Yep.
So we just kind of feel bad inundating him with corrections and updates. So we figured we're just going to move to something
Greg,
different.
if you're listening, keep at it.
Yeah.
I love you, man.
We use his stuff. I use his stuff for Kings of War, Bolt Action, everything else. Awesome.
So you said something about that's all he plays. And we talked about this yesterday, and Glenn and I were talking about it on the way down, that Glenn and I play a ton of games. We like playing Blood and Plunder, but I'm not to the point. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. It's not my main game.
Right.
But there's enough here for it to be a main game. Are you guys noticing that, with other folks, not just the two of us? Or
yeah, we've definitely seen some people. It's kind of just a lot of people who've kind of, oddly, a lot of you notice in Bolt Action, for example, right? You get a lot of Warhammer 40K immigrants, if you will.
Yeah. Refugees.
Refugees, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. So people looking for something else. And, most... I'm sure there's a joke out there or something where there's you're old when you get this sudden interest in World War II, right? So, and I love World War II stuff. I play Bolt Action and stuff like that. But so a lot of people will gravitate towards Bolt Action because it's kind of familiar, and I think there's some people who kind of just gravitate more towards pirate stuff or colonial era things, and that's more of a minority. But those types of people who are kind of coming from 40K or just looking for something. Maybe have been out of gaming for a while. We see those kind of people a lot of times picking it up as a main game.
Well, the nice thing about having a pirate game is there's not a single kid in America that has not wanted to be a pirate when they're coming up. And so I think it's something that's close to our hearts and that we always want to do pirate stuff. Of course, the pirate movies out there always help, but there's a lot of enthusiasm just for that genre. What you can do in this.
And we've mentioned, too, not only do you guys make a pirate game, some of you dudes look like pirates, and I dig that, man. That's cool.
It's a requirement, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
Glenn, you're going to have to go some facial hair.
Live action pirate games, so we'll have to try that.
I had a business idea of buying an actual sloop and doing a pirate fantasy camp. And we actually looked into it, but the insurance...
You might get some people that you don't want signing up for that.
It would be highly expensive, but the insurance to run a boat like that... that is like one of the biggest cost factors because every man wants to be a pirate. Do you guys do anything special for September 19th, National Talk Like a Pirate Day? If not, why not?
We try to. We try to. The most of the reason we don't is because we don't realize it's coming up and we're just inundated in a million things and we're like, oh my God, we're missing it again. But thank you for the reminder.
No Dice, No Glory would like to have a National Talk Like a Pirate Blood and Plunder Day.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, right?
We'll hit you guys with some ideas.
Right.
That's inspired.
Which hopefully, actually, by then, if I'm lucky, is be cutting it close, honestly. But one of the things we're working on, I can't believe I forgot to mention this, is organized play kits. So
very good.
We've got our first one in the works. I've got the models for it. If you guys want to see them, you can take some pictures. And
we
stuff.
would love to.
I have 2 of the models, and so we're going to give away some models in that kit. There's going to be a little rules booklet for a bunch of scenarios and stuff like that, as well as some cards for new characters. And the first one's going to be themed. The first few, if depending how it goes, but probably the first few are going to be themed around a guy named Bartholomew Sharp and his expedition. It's a really well recorded. There's 3 different guys who went on that expedition who recorded it. But basically, it's English buccaneers no longer legally can fight the Spanish, but there's a loophole that if they're in the South Sea, the Pacific, that's okay, right? That's
Have at it.
Yeah. It's technically not okay, but it's also they technically had a commission from the Darien tribe.
And now we know the origin of lawyers.
Yes.
So you mentioned it's a starter kit. So there's a lot of guys out there, onesies, twosies in their FLGS that play this game. And from talking to Edgar and you, especially mostly him yesterday, you guys are willing to work with these guys to get some support at the stores. Should they just contact you guys directly at firelockgames.com?
Yeah, please do. And we try to support as much as we can, and because we really want to support the game in any way. So if you're a store out there too, and you're listening to this, make sure to send us an email. Make sure you're on our store list on our website.
Okay.
Because since we're going through, most of our sales go through distribution. So we don't know what stores are carrying it. So, but if you let us know that you're carrying the game, we'll put you on our website and let people know where they can find you. And those organized play kits should be out sometime this year.
Oh, wow.
So we're just in the process, right? We're just finishing up the writing for it now. So as long as that doesn't get delayed, should be out this year sometime.
Yeah, we definitely in our local area want to host a tournament.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful because right now it's kind of like everybody has bought your stuff, but they've got it at home and they don't know to bring it, right? And so I think if you actually had an event or a lot of events around that, all this stuff is going to come out of the closets, and then people go like, oh, but now I know I can play it, and I don't. It's not just my local buddy who I know plays, but you always find people that come out of the woodwork when you actually have an event.
Right, and we're also tournament support. It's going to go right along with that. So we've got a tournament rules pamphlet that's already done. And we're going to try to put together support kits for that. We're just trying to figure out the best way to do it. One of the things I've realized, one of the advantages of having plastics is the low cost of being able to have sprues, is that it's really easy to do a lot of price support. Whereas because everything's metal and resin,
but your prices
is difficult. But we still try to do as much as we can.
Your prices are very reasonable.
Yeah,
I mean,
we suffer for
shockingly, because how much? It's less than $12 usually for the 4-group pack, which is almost a whole part of a force. That's all you need for a unit.
Right.
To me, that's why now I have French, and eventually we'll have one of everything. I think your pricing is reasonable, even with the ships. So going to plastics, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we try to keep it really as reasonable as possible. And we ride the line pretty hard, I think, because, we, especially when we sell into distribution and stuff like that. But it's, in our minds, it's worth it as long as we can keep ourselves afloat so that we can get it into as many people's hands as possible.
Yeah.
So, and then with the metal cost, you never know what's going to happen. So if it jumps up suddenly, we, we'll have our plastic kits to fall back on, and we can do more of those and stuff, so.
Well, I know what we want to ask next is in front of us. We see we see the big ships, of course, that is Blood and Plunder. It's iconic of Blood and Plunder. But I see these little ships here.
Right.
And I see these little tokens here. And when I first saw it, I'm like, no, are they playing another game? Oh, we can mention Sales of Glory. But it's not. And I really want to talk about what we see right here. And we're going to post.
I should mention that when he talks about little ships, so people have seen the regular ships that are part of Bloods and Plunder, and they're all 10 to 14 inches long. These ships are more about 2 to 3 inches long.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
They're for midget sailors.
Yeah, so this is oak and iron. This is a 1/600 fleet to a squadron to fleet scale game, right? So it'll handle both. And this is designed. This is going to be all plastic. It's going to be all boxed, similar like what you get with a game like X-Wing or something like that, where all the components you need to play are in a box.
Painted already?
They might be painted. We're looking into that.
Okay.
We're seeing what the costing is like. It might be an option on the Kickstarter, maybe, which this is going to come to Kickstarter in the fall this year.
Will you make sure, please tell us so we can sit down and talk with you guys about that when that kicks off?
Absolutely, yeah.
And we should note that getting in on the Kickstarter, the prices are extremely reasonable on that.
We always try to do that, yeah. So if you notice these models here, the hull is brown, and the sails and masts are all white. So that's the plan at the very minimum. So you're going to have some kind of color on them, so it's not just a gray piece of plastic on the table. And the bases will have the little seascape painted on them, the same color as the fat mat underneath, the tableware fat mat. So all the stuff's going to match that, and these will be part of the Kickstarter as well. And so you see there, it just matches up perfectly. And as well as all the little tokens. See the little wake marker there. And
now, I know people can't see this, but I'll put a picture on when we post this. These are just to insert tokens, I assume.
Exactly, yeah. So one little slot here is to track your damage. The other one tracks your fatigue. And damage is basically physical damage to the ship. And fatigue represents the crew being taking casualties, losing morale, getting suppressed, that kind of thing. And it's all very simple and straightforward. It uses these little movement arrows here. So you kind of just line up the arrows and move from one arrow to the other on the little middle line there. And then if you want to turn, you just lay across that edge, and that's your turn.
Similar to Armada, if you've played that.
Similar to Armada, but without the little flexi ruler. Yeah.
Thank you for not including a flexi ruler.
Yeah.
I like these better.
Yeah, I thought that was cool when I first saw it, and it's interesting. I got mine. I broke it up into little smaller bits. It's a little easier that way.
I did too.
Yeah.
So what navies are going to be in this game? And how many ships in each?
So we're going to have, the way we're going to do it right now, we're looking at the cost, what it's going to cost to produce the ships. They're going to all be in plastic. And at the very least, there'll be one of each of the ships of the line classes. So 6 to first rate, and then as well as a bunch of unrated ships, galleons, flutes, light frigates, corvettes, sloops, things like that. So the game will scale. And it's going to play at 3 different levels, which basically a small level would be like small privateer engagements. So small fleets of like sloops and brigantines and frigates and stuff like that. And then at the higher end, you're playing with small, full squadrons of ships of the line, right? So, and then you can expand that and play with multiple squadrons. And then you can play a full-on fleet battles.
Are you going to have a similar card system like you do in Blood and Plunder?
There is a card system, but it's different. Here, if you pass me those there, I'll show it to you real quick. So what you're going to have is you're going to build your hand of cards, right? For the demo, we're using 5, just keep it simple. But typically, you're going to have 7 for now, anyway. This is still in development, but so if each one you'll see has an initiative number, and then it's got a name, right? So this one's rolling broadsides, for example. So this one lets you fire a little bit earlier than everybody else, right? And so what you're going to do is this card, your hand always stays the same. It's always the same cards. But the cards are delayed by a turn. So you're always going to have a face-down card and a face-up card. And your face-up card is the card that's active for this turn, right? And that's your initiative and your special roll for this turn. And the face-down one is for the next turn. So instead of playing 1 card per ship, you're playing 1 card per fleet, per squadron, I'm sorry. And you will build this hand, so you can choose from a variety of different cards. And
each faction will have cards.
There's going to be generic ones, so you see a little lion rampant symbol is a generic one. And then you'll see there's a Spanish one here. So that's a specific Spanish.
With the word bravado on it.
But it forces you to plan a little bit. In other words, you can't just come alongside and, okay, now I shoot. You have to know, well, I want to come up and I'm going to shoot him, but I'm going to maneuver here the following turn or whatever it is.
Exactly. And these cards, so what these cards represent in a very abstract way is always one of the big things that they would do in a fleet engagement is an admiral would meet with all his captains, and they'd have some prearranged signals for each other and specific battle plans. So even if they can't signal each other, they have an idea of what they should be doing, right? So you building your deck, your hand of cards, represents that. So you're choosing the tactics and the strategy you want to use with your squadron or your fleet, and then you'll play those every turn, and they'll determine which force activates first, and who fires first, and all of that stuff, right? As well as giving you some special rules and things like that. So then on top of that, each fleet is going to have, or each squadron or fleet is going to have a faction card. And your faction card is going to have a little flag on it. So all your cards have to have either the generic symbol or your faction symbol. Okay? And then based on the faction you choose, each going to have a resolve, which tells you how much fatigue you can ignore, a skill, which has to do with sailing, how much dice you can roll to try to perform maneuvers and things like that. And then some special rules and a point value as well. And then so you can play Spanish and have different options like Spanish Navy, Spanish Corsairs, Guarda Costas, and different things like that. So there'll also be upgrade cards for your ships that'll let you do. Each ship can have a different command. Can have a commander, 2 crew cards, and 2 crew cards, 2 ship cards, and 2 shot cards. So you could take like grape shot, chain shot, things like that. You can have a clean hull, extra like a freshly careened hull, which will give you a little speed boost. Little things like that, as well as fire ships. You can have a fire ship. Just any ship, you put a fire ship card on it, now it's a fire ship. And those cards are all secret, so you play them face down, and when their effect comes into play, it's when you flip them, or if you sail close to them, you can see what they are.
So what's the scalability here? I mean, I see 4 ships on the table. Is that like a normal battle?
Well, this is a very small demo, so typically you're looking probably at about 4 to 5 ships per side on a typical squadron scale. Once you go up to fleets, you're looking at a minimum of about 9. Right, and that's if you have 3 squadrons of 3, which would be very small. So it should be able to handle. We haven't. I'm moving into the process where I'm trying to start testing it at the bigger scale now.
But the Spanish Armada is the ultimate goal here.
Of course, yes. You should try to have at least 300 or 400 ships. If you want to play fleet scale, average is probably going to be about 12 to 20, somewhere in that range. And then a squadron is going to be between 4 and 6.
Well, and I guess the nice thing with that is that you can have multiple players on a side, too.
Correct, yeah. And that plays really well that way. Yeah.
Now, is this also going to go... You're going to start it in the same period as the initial Blood and Plunder and then bring it up to...
Close, yeah. So we're going to go... The period's going to go roughly 1650 to 1750. Right? So basically when fleets start sailing in line, because that's the rules are kind of going in that direction.
Right.
So sailing in line will give you some bonuses. Like instead of alternating firing, if your ships are in line, they can all fire together, which is a pretty big advantage. As well as some of the initiative cards, if you're in line, will give you some bonuses.
How are you going to nerf the Royal Navy?
Oh, well, at this time period, they weren't. They're just starting to get.
They weren't as dominant as they did in like the 18th century.
So if I'm a French player and I have a scurvy card that will affect the other guy's crew.
Yeah, there could be some stuff like that. I haven't quite put that one in there. I'm actually thinking about a way where you could do...
You could just call it the Mitch card.
Yeah, you can make... I was thinking of a card where you can maybe force a discipline test with the skill resolve on the other fleet so they can lose cohesion and stuff like that.
So you guys have been demoing this for the last 2 days. What are people thinking?
So far, we've gotten really good reviews. We've had we've tried to make this really simple, but obviously still very tactical. And that's important if you want to bring it up to true fleet scale, right?
Sure, so do you have an idea on timing for a Kickstarter for this?
Kickstarter is going to be sometime this fall. Right now we're shooting for September, October. We just need to get numbers from the manufacturing side because this will be the first game. Well, actually, it's not true. Second game. We've got a little dice game that we've made. And we just sent that over to get produced. It's called Scurvy Dice. It's going to be super fun. Just a little pickup. It's a fun little game.
Is that beer and pretzels?
Very beer and pretzels.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
So, and that's the first game that we're not doing any production on as far as manufacturing, right? So we're building it out of our warehouse. So this one's going to be the same thing. We're going to just receive a box all ready to go, give it to you guys, and so we're treading the water on that. We're learning. We're taking our time. We're not going to rush into it. So if we hit any obstacles, that may delay it. But for now, it's looking good for September, October.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm excited for this, and it's going to be called Oak and Iron, and we will definitely have, when the Kickstarter goes off, you will see our emails, our accounts on Kickstarter hit right away, Matter of fact, I'm excited to get my No Peace Beyond the Line. So, out there, the guys that are playing this game, and, you guys are very hands-on with them, too. Have they been giving you guys really good feedback on both games, or especially on Blood and Plunder, of what they dig about it, and what are you guys hearing the most that people are enjoying about it?
The thing people enjoy the most that I always get is the simplicity of going between land and sea so smoothly.
Yeah.
That's what we get the most of by far, I think, yeah. But most people just like the fact that there's a lot of flavor in all different units, and they like that there's so many options and you can use, and that the models don't need assembly. You get a lot of that.
And they're beautiful.
Yeah.
How about fan feedback? Do they give you suggestions? Say, hey, did you know you could put the Portuguese arquebus in here and it would do this and that and the other?
The
yeah, we
puckle
definitely
gun.
get some of that. And I'm saving up stuff. I'm taking notes. Eventually, one day, there will be probably a Blood and Plunder 2nd edition. That's not going to happen anytime soon, but I'm going to definitely take my time with that, because when that time comes, I want to make sure I don't overdo it and I don't underdo it either. So we make sure it's exactly the changes it needs to have.
So let's say one of these big guys that works, for Firelock Games says, I want to challenge you to a game.
Right.
What force are you playing in this, and why?
Oh, I've got a few. So
I know you got them all, but you got to have a favorite.
I have a hard time having a favorite, but I have two that I kind of go between. So I really like the French Buccaneers, right? And really the French militia. I kind of do a mixed force between the two. That's why I made in the new book the Petit Guave militia. It's very mixed of militia and filibusters. So I run that a lot. And I really like to run the Spanish guerrillas, one of the new options too. So for sea, I kind of like the French a little more. But when I'm playing on land, I really like the Spanish guerrillas with the mix of the Hostigadores, which is the new militia, the new Miliciano option, and the Native Americans and the Lanceros. They make a nice, nasty combination.
I hate Lanceros, man. I hate them.
Well, and when you can ambush half your force, it's great.
Well, the nice thing about the way you set up the game is that each of the nationalities, they have their own flavor.
Right.
So French are best at shooting, the Spanish are best at melee. It's really nice, so that depending upon the type of player you are, if you like to sit back and shoot, okay, we can kind of guide you to one faction versus I want to go in there and mix it up. Than Spanish Lanceros or where it's at.
Right, and especially with the new book, even if some of the nationality styles bleed into the nationalities, into the factions of different nationalities. English Buccaneers, for example, are a very shooty English faction, right? They still shoot pretty well. You can make an incredible gun line with, especially if you mix them up with some militia just to get extra bodies. They do really well. And then French filibusters or Buccaneers, on the other hand, you can really gear them towards close combat in a nasty way. So French are typically the shootier faction, kind of lots of shooting and moving around, which is what's fun about the militia. But when you take it to the Buccaneers, it's a completely different flavor. Now they can shoot okay, but they really want to go in there and break your face.
My two favorite units are Forlorn Hope and Les Enfants Perdus.
Enfants Perdus?
Enfants Perdus.
Yeah,
and it's because they're expensive. They're 8 points, I believe.
If you make them veterans, yeah.
The
Enfants are a little cheaper, yeah.
And now you can up armor, give them better weapons, I think.
Well, with them, they've pretty much stayed the same. They've got some options, some different explosive options, but that's it.
Yeah, they just come right at you, man. They're dangerous.
Well, and what I like too is that you're continually coming out with these optional or off-kilter forces like the loggers.
Yes.
And you have to roll and see if they're drunk at the beginning of the game. I mean, it's very characterful.
Thank you. Yeah, we tried to. That's one of the main things we really wanted to capture.
The alcoholism?
Is the alcoholism, yes, of the pirates.
The plunder of the Blood and Plunder.
Nobody forgets that, yeah, no.
And that's the other thing, too, because you look at the missions, it's Blood and Plunder.
Well, it's a grog and pretzels game, right?
It's a grog and pretzels game, yeah. I mean, we're fans of the game, and I'd tell you the truth, when I spoke to Megan that works in your office, I was just like, hey, because my buddy Sean, who's also on the broadcast, has been contacting. We've really been dying to talk to you guys because we dig this game, and we're wondering why we don't hear and see it everywhere, because we should. I think, folks, look, I give some bad advice, but this is a game that is, you will enjoy this game, even if it's not your, and gamers say thing. I'm not a sci-fi guy, but I love Armada. Because it's a tight game, and it's, guess what?
I love Armada.
It is.
Game, yeah.
It's fun. You probably play Empire.
No, I actually play Rebels. I like the Rebels.
Oh, there you go.
I like I like to do my broadsides and sail and just pretend I'm sailing around firing broadsides.
He just played it for the first time 2 weeks ago.
The Rebels are more piratical.
Yeah, and the Empire, to my opinion, did nothing wrong. But what I like is, like, if you get a force and you don't dig it, there's other force lists you can apply them in. And the bottom line is, it's a fun game. You don't need 700 models. You and I have never had more than 12 each.
You guys are going pretty elite then, huh?
Well,
you could do it with 12
I
for
have
sure.
more than he does. He goes.
When he
goes
does
to
Spanish,
elite,
he's got a
but
ton.
Then those, like I said, you don't need to upgrade Lanceros very much. They can get in there, and Indians with bows. Guess what? They can shoot a lot. So,
and if you ever get up to 200-point land battles, you start to see some more interesting forces come around. The Spanish could easily put 60 guys on the table if they wanted to. Well, the English and French can too, but the Spanish could do it with so much more variety.
Yeah, I don't want to see that unless I got a cannon.
Yeah.
And when you pick up the book, the main rule book, to me it's well written. The history part of it, I think, is amazing.
Thank you.
Because I dig reading the history of the pirates, and we were talking yesterday about Under the Black Flag, which I read, and I've given that book away many times. It's really good. But you can get the entire history of the Age of Pirates in the book, and the rules are, as we went through them, the first few times we did have to look it up, but I think the rules become really intuitive. We had to forget more about other games we played than to remember this one, and which is what I kind of liked about it. But the bottom line is it's fun. It doesn't take very long, and I would like to see more folks playing this. I think yesterday you said there was a tournament, or talking to Edgar, there's a tournament of 20 people, and I know at least 20 people that have the models. We just need to get them out of their houses. Cool. Maybe send real pirates over to the house. Are any of these pirate-looking dudes available to go to their houses?
Sure, yeah. We'll send them wherever they need to go.
Yeah, and there's some big dudes over here, too. I mean, it's they definitely wouldn't fit in some of these ships.
So it's funny. I'm sure he told you about it. He likes telling everybody about it. But we did a reenactment in St. Augustine.
He showed us pictures.
Yeah, we all went as Spanish pikemen. So those two are the biggest Spanish pikemen of
ever.
All time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's a big guy, and his son is I think he's taller than him. Yeah. Wow, he's got to watch out for that. We'll get pictures of these guys. But, I personally love this game. I think you should be playing it, and I'm pointing to you. I'm pointing to the microphone.
Yeah.
And, we definitely want to stay in contact with you guys to see, like, what's coming out next. We want to hype the Kickstarter because I really want folks at my gaming store playing this. I don't have to call and beg people to play this game. Is there anything else you tell the folks out there that why should they be playing this game other than the fact that you invented it? And
well, that's really all the reason they need. But if they need more reason, I think it's a really fun tactical game. It doesn't take a long time. The gameplay is actually on small tables, which a lot of people don't realize. If you look at our Facebook page, a lot of times you'll see gigantic tables that people build, which is always fun. But if you are, you don't have a ton of terrain or don't have time to build a ton, 100-point land battle, we typically play on a 3x3 foot. A regular 200 will go up to a 3x4. And on sea, we play on a 4x4. So you can really go crazy on terrain because you don't have to make a whole bunch. Right? Just a nice few big pieces will fill up a board quickly and create a lot of interesting elements. So, but a game takes typically, when you really know the rules, like me and Jonathan, the guy who does a lot of playtesting with me, we play 100 points. We're done in half an hour a lot of times.
And it's a good game.
We know the rules well, obviously, but and it was an interesting game, and didn't feel like we just kind of flew through it. It felt like a lot happened, and then when you jump it up, really it should never really take more than 2 hours, unless you're playing really big or something.
And I'll tell you how much I like this game, and not to mention somebody else's Kickstarter, but Cigar Box, who makes excellent mats.
Yep.
If their Kickstarter got high enough, they were going to make an island. Map or whatever it was, and now that it hit the Kickstarter, that's one of the ones I'm going to get, and it's just for this game because there's no other game I would have the land and sea in.
Right.
And I want to buy more of it.
Too.
Huh?
Yeah. It looks really nice as well.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yeah. They showed it to us at NashCon, I believe. Yeah, NashCon is where we saw it. And we also have the guys who do the tableware also did a modular island. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
And that one's pretty fun because you could do you can kind of do bays and coves and stuff. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, it's cool. A lot of people there's a lot of third-party people making a lot of interesting accessories.
And you guys are cool with
for it.
that, right?
Oh yeah, of course. As long as people aren't straight up copying stuff, it's fine.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be able to make mats or anything like that or things. But we actually were talking with the Foreground guys. We've been talking for a few weeks now, and we met up here, and they've got some barrels I got up there that they're going to do, and they're going to start doing a line of different terrain stuff as well from some laser cut stuff that they do. And if you've seen Foreground, you know they do awesome stuff. And we're going to do a few resin pieces of our own. We've got a little fort and a gun emplacement that we've made. Those should be out this year. Forgot to mention that earlier, actually.
Okay.
It's actually a little like 16th century style stone tower, which the Spanish had a few of here and there. I think there may have been a few French ones as well. Most of them are gone these days, but we know there were some out there. And you can put like 4 guns on it. It's a perfect little fort for a regular 200-point battle or so. And we've also got we got a Fort Matanzas that
A full up fort?
it's yeah. If you've been to San Augustine, Fort Matanzas, it'll be a smaller one on the river. And we've had that a guy by the name of Jamie Martinson made it, and he brought it to us at Adepticon, and we were blown away. It's full scale, so it's awesome. It's about 14 inches square.
Oh.
So it's a nice size, but not too big. Won't dominate a table, but still looks nice. And he did an excellent job with it. Now we just need to find a way to cast it affordably.
Yeah.
So we're probably looking to look at foam or something like that and see what we come up with. But that'll probably be out sometime. That's really an 18th century fort. Doesn't really fit the time period too. It kind of works, but we're going to do it. That'll probably be in sometime next year when we do the 18th century stuff. We'll probably see that
and
as
it'll fit perfectly with the historical stuff of like Panama and
and it'll really fit well with the 18th century, like the War of Jenkins-Ear, which is going to be part of that expansion, where you have a lot of conflicts between the Spanish and the English on the Florida, Carolina, Georgia border.
So you talk about a lot of these conflicts, and I used to think Glenn and I were very big students of history, maybe he more so than me. But like you're mentioning a lot of these conflicts that took place in North America that I've never heard of. So there was a book that Edgar mentioned yesterday that I guess you used that I actually ordered, and the other guy, York, who also works with us, ordered just to get the history behind this. So what I kind of like about games that make me want to go out and get a book and read a little bit more about it. And this you can almost kill it with your detailed history in there. But I'm like, you mentioned these conflicts, and I'm like, I'm shaking my head, yes, folks, but I have no idea what he's talking about. And I assume, like, it's a real thing. So
yeah, there's a lot. And then, like, most people hear about the French and Indian War, right? And they think the French and Indian War. But there's actually, I always forget, I think it's 5 French and Indian Wars. Yeah. And so in the No Peace Beyond the Line, we cover the first one, King William's War. That's the first real French and Indian War, right? And you've got the first conflicts between the New Englanders and Virginians and the Canadians and all their Native American allies fighting with each other. So those units are in this book, so you can start that conflict.
I am so impressed with the scope and breadth of the units in No Peace Beyond the Line.
It almost killed me, I'll tell you that. But thankfully, I had a lot of great help from a lot of playtesters.
Do you drink rum when you do this?
Oh, a lot, yeah.
Well, it must have been hard to kind of, where do you cut it? Because people would have wanted so much to be in there.
We planned, thankfully, I didn't announce everything I intended to do. Because then I would have felt bad, because there was no way it would have. Once I got started, I was like, wow. This is, because we play tested everything in there. We made sure everything worked. We developed it. We researched it. So nothing in there is half done. Like, we really went out of our way to try to. The toughest one was the Native Americans, because there's just so many unique individual groups.
Yeah.
That we tried to get as much flavor as we could possibly get, because I feel like a lot of colonial games kind of brush them off as kind of just like, oh, these are just natives. Boom.
Or kind of like Hollywood, they make a generic Indian, where there were so many different tribes, and like even deciding which ones to sculpt must have been.
Yeah. So my original ambition was to say, okay, I'm going to cover most, like maybe do 5 or 6 tribes from each like region. But that was just impossible. So I just gave up on that. But I did try to get as much flavor and variety. I think there's more Native American lists than any of the other nationalities.
There are. Yeah.
So there's a lot of variety there. You can pretty much cover everything but Inuits, as far as Native Americans go.
Can we get those in sometime next year?
We'll work on that for you if that's what you want.
Because I can tell you some of these sculpts are not dressed for that.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Our models are absolutely done for the Caribbean, Central America, and they're kind of a mishmash of those. They're not specific, but there was a lot of similarity between them, so they're very close.
And if you're a Napoleonic gamer that likes all your models looking alike and uniform, you're going to have to get used to these because they really are unique.
Right.
And I kind of like that because everything's a little painting challenge. I had a great time painting it, and Edgar yesterday was giving us a ton of painting tips.
Rufus, by the way.
Rufus, sorry.
Edgar's
Why do I
the
keep
other
saying Edgar? I don't know why. Rufus.
I think you were speaking to Edgar yesterday. He's the other guy here.
Yeah,
so
that's
fine.
right.
He's from Florida also. So
They're all good. All you Floridians look alike to me. And like I said, you guys all look like pirates. So it's,
right.
Yeah. So what in No Peace Beyond the Line is going to be the big army everybody need to have?
Oh wow!
What's the in force?
So far, it's really been a good spread, which is a good sign. So far, at the tournament yesterday, we had a guy running the new Spanish guerrilla option for the militia. We had a guy running Canadian militia.
I heard, yeah.
And I think those were the only two guys who had the new book already from the Kickstarter. So they're because we gave the digital book away,
which was awesome.
So
and as a consumer, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. We tried to do. I mean, it was killing us that we couldn't give it out to people. So we're like, let's just give them the PDF and just be done with it. And then at least they've got something. We delivered on something at the very least on time, reasonably anyway. So.
I don't see people complaining. Like I've been on Kickstarters it's been years and I haven't gotten anything. I don't see people complaining, but like the communication you guys have, and this Kickstarter was massive. Like how many backers did you guys have?
I don't know the exact number, but I know it was around 1,300, 1,400, somewhere in that area after the pledge manager.
Yeah, and I got into it late, so I did the afterwards on Backer It, and I just that's a lot of folks.
Yeah.
And I don't see folks complaining, whining. Like, folks are really excited about it. I'm excited.
Oh, they are. Especially, the number one thing amongst my friends that I know ordered it is the European land forces.
Yeah.
And having cavalry now as part of it. That there's a lot of guys that are
I asked
excited
if
about
I know
that.
you got cavalry, and I was worried about that.
And
but they said that cavalry
sounded
OP.
The gun crew, too.
Yeah.
Oh, the gun crew. That's right.
The gun crew, the soldiers. So if you actually are like a Napoleonic gamer and like to do uniformed, orderly troops, we do have regulars now. Yeah. So all the main nationalities have the option for their expeditionary forces, which is typically what regulars would be, with the exception of the Spanish, who had actual tercios in the New World. So that's their regiments. But everybody else just had kind of temporary troops. The French finally start to get some regular troops in there, but they're kind of mixed in with the militia anyway. They don't have real tons of numbers in there. I can never pronounce it right. I'm going to butcher it, but the Marines, basically, the French Marines that are stationed there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always butcher that. I'm not even going to try. So
it's
the
good.
French Marines, essentially.
Yeah,
serving ashore. Yeah.
I love
another thing that people are excited about, at least, and I personally ordered one, is the Galleon. By far your biggest ship.
Oh, yes.
I mean, how long do you think that ship is?
It's about 2 feet long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a galleon? So that means
see one tonight. Actually, if you go check out our sea battle tonight.
Well, I got to buy a frigate now because how am I going to come up? I got a sloop. But that's something I noticed about the ships. Even though we were playing, and the ships were like, "That's a bigger ship than mine."
Yeah.
I could still play to my ship's strengths,
right?
And I didn't do half bad. I actually sunk a ship.
If you're playing even points, it's going to be even.
Yeah.
Because a bigger ship doesn't necessarily mean you don't get all the guns. You got to buy all your guns.
Yeah.
So if you're going to sink all those points to the guns, like you can play 200 points and kit out a galleon with a few guns, but it's not going to carry much.
And you use the same models you use for the land game, folks.
Right. Yep. So it's typically going to be balanced. So yeah, you may have a bigger ship, but you're typically going to be carrying less guns, or your crew's not going to have the same ability to resist damage and stuff like that. So it's going to be a balance.
Yeah, I'm excited. What, are you excited?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're smiling.
I'm
gonna have to buy the frigate.
Never a shortage of things to paint, but these will be very exciting to paint. Again, what I like, though, is that because of the variety of forces, especially with the Spanish, historically they brought in everything. You're going to have Indians, you're going to have former slaves, you're going to have a mishmash. And so painting each model is actually really, really interesting. It's not back to the, okay, I've got 400 guys that I got to paint Prussian blue,
Yeah, definitely. And you could, again, if you wanted to, that option exists now. Some people like that. Some people like to have their nice uniform troops on the table. I kind of like that sometimes, but I do like the variety as well.
No, I like the variety.
Yeah, I like both. I really do. So I like to mix them, right? So one of my favorite things I play my Spanish with a Florida theme, right, for the St. Augustine, and I'll have always have a unit of regulars to kind of back up all my skirmishers. Just like a solid anchor in the center, just with the commander and it just kind of organizing everything. And I like playing it that way.
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to play. Well, let's plug your website. Let's plug where people can go to find you, Facebook, website too. And then we definitely want to talk to you guys before. So I'm definitely going to say thanks so much.
Sure, and I'll do it anytime. And the websites are firelockgames.com. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search Firelock Games. And the Buccaneering fan page. It's called Buccaneering Across the Spanish Main. That's a great place to go. It's kind of like we've got almost 4,000 members there now.
Wow.
And people post some amazing stuff.
Awesome.
I mean, you just to see other people's games and terrain and paint jobs, it's awesome. So it's definitely a good resource. We're on there all the time answering questions and stuff, too. It's kind of serving as our unofficial forum for the time being while we get our forums in order. So it's definitely a good place to go check us out.
Well, No Dice, No Glory does have a thread thing for Blood and Plunder.
Sweet.
So...
Yeah.
We'll hype that one, too.
Awesome. Yeah, go ahead and go post it on our Facebook page and get some people in there.
I will.
Sure. Yeah.
But keep up the good work. I mean, we're all very excited, and it sounds like you've got a lot of other things continuing to come out.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we've got lofty ambitions, so let's see if we can get that far.
Well, thanks, Michael. And we're going to turn it back to Sean, who's jealous that he didn't get to meet with you guys. And we'll be right back.
Oh my God, Mitch, I'm so jealous I didn't get to talk to them. I'll definitely be coming to Historicon next year to talk to them and hopefully actually play some Blood and Plunder. So if you're in the Northeast Ohio or Northern Pennsylvania area or really within a 4-hour drive of me, let me know so I can play some pirates with you because I love the pirates. But if you're not in my area and you're looking to learn all you could possibly learn about wargaming with discussions on forums and amazing articles and podcasts, you should head right over to NoDiceNoGlory.com, where you'll find forums and rules discussions and list deconstructions. And yes, I stole that directly from our old school friends WWPD, but it works, so I'm using it. You should head over to NoDiceNoGlory.com for all your wargaming needs. And with that, I'll throw it back to the boys for the final segment in today's special Historicon podcast.
And we're back here at Historicon.
Hey.
We are in the middle of the Flames of War Early War National Tournament. And I'm here with Mitch, with Glenn, and with Ed Sales.
Ed, say hi, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
And I haven't tripped over a chair today, but this is chairborne. This is
The
day
day's
2.
early.
The day's early. Day's young. I might as well have tripped over a chair for how well I've been doing in this tournament. But I've had 3 opponents and I've had fun games, so I can't complain. So it was always more important to me anyway.
You want to wrap up Team Yankee real quick?
Yes. So I think we put an announcement up on the Facebook page about who won, but
I didn't.
You didn't? Okay, so
no.
Let's see what I can remember without looking at the thing you wrote down. So our
hold on.
champion
yes.
will be joining us in a little bit.
Yeah, champion.
And that would be...
All right, well, let's go over...
You did take notes. Okay, so I can do this.
Of
or
course.
You can do it.
Can you read my handwriting?
Yeah, this time. You were clear enough. All right, so our champion was James Copeland. In second place was Chris Jackson. And in third place was Pete Zerfy. The best sportsman went to Carl Bellotti, who flew in all the way from LSU. He's got his purple shorts on. He's the most colorfully dressed person here. So it's nice to be able to see him across the room. Best painted was Chris Fretz. We gave out a booby prize of 2 parking lots. That was Mitch's idea. Hit the parking lot. And
he statistically finished last, but he was a great guy.
He was a great guy. And our UK was Andrew Hobson. USA was Bill White. West German was Eric Milan. East German was Kevin Dietz. The Freeloader Nations Award for the first time went to Brian Reed. And
for Canadians.
For the Canadians. And our best Soviet player was Howard West.
Yeah, that was a good time. Now, it was 4 rounds, man. And I'll tell you, dudes were exhausted by the time the thing was over. But we only had 2 guys drop towards the end, which you kind of understand. But that's 40 guys, 38 guys finished. I thought everybody had a great time. I thought it was a great event. I cannot wait to do it again. Maybe we'll get Ed Sales to play next time.
Yeah, I just had a conflict with work. Otherwise, I'd have been here.
Yeah, Ed has probably one of the more interesting jobs of any of us. He's a How would you say your job? What's the proper term?
How do you say it again? Oh, proper term, correctional officer.
He's a hack, right? That's an actual nickname, right?
Yeah, hat. We also get key man, goon squad. There's a lot of key terms to go with it.
Have you ever seen any abuse in your time in the penal system?
Never.
Wait till I come and visit you at work. On the good side, of course.
Yeah, but you're too pretty to go to prison.
I'm way too pretty to go to prison. So I thought it went great. I thought the support, everybody got the EM50. We need to have more of these type events. So I'm excited about it.
Something else I'll say that was reflective of the same stuff we saw last year. I didn't notice any major rule problems. Like there weren't people. I mean, there's people asking questions.
No, I noticed.
You had a couple snippy things.
People don't know the difference between version 4 and Team Yankee.
No, it's infuriating. Yeah. But I will say this, and I didn't mention this to people when we were giving out the awards because everybody wants their plaque and they wanted to lie down.
Yeah.
But when we were calculating the awards for best sportsman, like 24 different people were voted on out of the 40 people. So I think that's a tribute to the fact that there was a lot of good play.
And with 4 rounds.
With four rounds.
That makes that, very unusual.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Well, I think something also to point out that No Dice, No Glory should be very proud that we actually had 40 people in our tournament.
We are.
And you had significantly less than that in the Flames of War Nationals.
But we're here to support Battlefront as best as possible.
Yeah, the Nationals have only brought in 28. So it's that's a downtick from last year as well. So uptick for Team Yankee and downtick for Flames.
So let's transition into this. Ed brings up an amazing point, as he usually does. So we're able to get folks, yeah, you're right, we beat the bushes for it, we threaten people, we market it, but, why aren't folks coming out in droves for these games? I noticed a bunch of these people, it's captive audience, they were here yesterday. A bunch of them weren't, but I'm not getting this. What do you think?
If you played the Flames War doubles, the Team Yankee Nationals today, you're saying a third game of playing a game. And I don't know about you guys, I am really, really hot right now. And I'm not talking about my usually good looks. It's burning up in here. I mean, it's
that black No Dice, No Glory shirt that you're wearing.
It could be.
Yeah.
It's pretty warm. Some people probably just couldn't make the 3 days. At the same time, who knows if it's saying something about Flames? I don't know.
No, I mean, what do you think?
I think early war is the least popular of the 3.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think you're going to get a huge uptake for late war next year if that's what they're going to do. But this is a marathon, and I can't speak to somebody who played in both Team Yankee and I didn't play in the doubles. I didn't play in Team Yankee because I was helping run it, kind of while not being there, and Mitch was doing everything.
He left me.
I left you on your own for most of it, but I think that it's a little less intensive this one because there's 1250 is not a lot of points. So most of these armies are relatively small, and the games are wrapping up in 2 hours without a problem. We did have some timeouts, quite a few, in fact, where people kept playing past our call during the Team Yankee tournament. So I don't know what you think, but what do you think, Ed?
Playing past your turn?
Yeah.
That's very annoying because you want to, from running tournaments in the past, you want to get to the next round. You want to get all the scores in, rank them, and get to the next round. And
we were able to turn them around in 10 minutes yesterday.
Well, the other problem, too, though, is when you time out, then it's a lose-lose.
Yeah.
And that bothers people who are trying to get points.
And what shocks me, Tom, is something you mentioned. You said that early war is the least popular period. I would think if you like Team Yankee, early war would be the period you'd be drawn to. When I look at Team Yankee, it's almost anything can almost kill anything in Team Yankee, right? You got that small little guy who can fire a rocket and knock out the best tank you have. In early war, a rifle guy can kill a good number of the armored vehicles in early war. So it's kind of surprising that we don't have more. And at the 1250, you can't bring everything. So I don't know if people got frustrated that they couldn't find the list they liked because they couldn't bring everything. But it really makes you have to make that tactical choice of what you leave behind.
I remember when the tournament was 2 days, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the big complaints was, why don't they make the tournament 1 day? And then Battlefront did that.
Right.
And I think that people looked at it less as an opportunity to, I think they did what you would expect them to do, which is not play more Flames of War all 3 days.
Right.
But to say, well, I'm going to try out some other stuff, and I'm going to pick which one of these 3 I'm most interested in, and I'm going to do it. And it looks like most people picked pick Team Yankee.
Do you think the location could have played a part? Because I know there's a lot of guys in the Carolinas.
Same location as yesterday.
Well, I'm saying same for Flames.
Yeah.
You're the Team Yankee, the Flames, right? But I'm saying with Flames. I mean, there were 38 people registered for Flames, and 11 people dropped.
We
Yeah.
had a ton of drops.
11 people dropped in one day.
But
So,
we only had 2 drops. Well, 2 prior, and then Kurt realized he couldn't make it that day.
But then people came in and filled in, and we were higher than we were when we started. So,
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, we're not going to beat up the games. I think, hey, we're going to support the tournament. But let me ask a question here to you 3 guys, especially Glenn, you played in it. What did you think, and you're doing this today, what did you think of 4 rounds, 2 hours each? Was it not enough time?
No, actually, I had one game, did timeout, and it always depends. The timeouts are usually when it's infantry on infantry, and it kind of just takes more time. At least, though, in Team Yankee, you're not talking that much infantry. So, again, I was running Marine infantry, by the way, but all the games, settled out within the 2 hours, although I saw very few people finish early, sometimes you see in the old Flames games. But I would say that the same timeline for early war, if you brought what I did one early war nationals, so they had it 3 years ago. I brought Strokovi. This format would have been a real problem to finish.
Yeah.
I think we've had a trend in the last few months of having tournaments with 2-hour rounds. So what I've seen is the people who've played slow have played quicker. The people who've played quick play a lot quicker now. I've gotten to at least turn 9 in all 3 rounds.
I'm not going to mention names, but it was one of Chris Jackson's opponents that I thought there was some slow play going on there. And it was at the top table at the moment. And Ed, you're our tournaments guru. What do you do about people that you think are playing slow? I mean, you can't tell them to speed up because it's...
Are you saying what was I do as the opponent, or what was I do as the tournament
well,
organizer?
What would you do to get somebody to move it?
You can try to pressure them, but I've seen sometimes...
Whips.
Yeah, I've seen sometimes when you pressure people, they kind of intentionally slow down because you come up, they think you're coming off as being a bit of a jerk.
We are rated E, so it's all right.
And but there's other people. You can there's people that think you're going to come off as a jerk and intentionally play slower. You got to play quicker. You got to intentionally know your moves ahead of time and start playing quicker for them. You also point out sometimes I've seen people just stare off in space thinking of a move. Hey, are you going to make a move? And just get them off balance and get them going. You really can't force the guy to play faster if he plays slow.
Well, I think you can encourage. I had my first opponent, and it was going in the wrong direction for him, and he was going, well, I guess I don't think we're going to finish this. And I said, we've got 25 minutes. Here, are you done? And if you prompt them, are you done? Yeah, I'm done. Okay, here. And I go boom, 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 and your turn. And I think a key part of that is doing your turn quickly so you turn it back to him, and he sees kind of where you're trying to go with that, and it doesn't give him an excuse for slow play.
And you make a good point there, where I said, hey, you got to hurry up. You made the good call of, hey, we got 25 minutes left. So that's like a friendly reminder that, hey, we got to get things moving. And you can even say, hey, I got 25 minutes left. I think I can win. Could we hurry up and get to the next turn so I can try to pull this off? And most people are going to be like, okay, I'm not going to be that jerk.
Exactly.
Well, and he actually walked up, so we didn't plan this too. But Chris, we were talking about one of your games. It was right in front of the TO's table, and it looked like slow play. You kind of got through it. I saw the level of frustration, but what is your opinion of slow play in general, not just what happened yesterday?
How do you handle it?
Well, it's fairly obvious. It seems to be a tactic used by people who don't want to play the game. They just want to get in the way. They don't want to say that they lost, so they don't actually play the game for as long as possible. And that way it turns into a draw, and they say, oh, look who I tied in the game. It's.
So are you trying to say that it was done purposefully yesterday? We didn't mention the individual's name.
I don't know. That gentleman has a long time reputation, and it ebbs and flows. And sometimes it's intentional, or sometimes it looks intentional. Sometimes you just don't know whether he gets flustered and stops thinking.
Well, look, I got to be honest. I've played against you once, and I get intimidated, and I probably would play slow, too, because I don't want you thinking I'm an idiot. But you handle it with class and grace, and that's really all you can ask for. So we wrapped up already the Flames of War, the Team Yankee tournament. Chris finished second. I'm tired of handing this guy awards. What do you guys think of, and what do you think of the 4 rounds, 2-hour format?
If you can't get the 4-round tournament lends itself to the larger number of players. If you don't have 2 days to play more than 3 games, and you have more than 24 players, you really need to have that 4th round so that you don't have 4 or 5 people piled up at the top with 3 wins and 18 points. That 4th round, those 4 guys wind up facing each other, and that'll spread the field out enough that it makes it easier for the TO to do a clear winner without having to compute the number of zits on the guy's face as a tiebreaker.
Yeah, and I think an illustration of that, Tom, why don't you tell them the points, how they totaled out? Remember the winner, and then you had...
We only had one undefeated.
One guy at 17.
Yeah, so Mitch came up with this. We used to do point differential last year, and we decided not to do that. I think under partially your recommendation, Chris, and then it worked out fine, because with 4 rounds, we were able to differentiate within each of the nationalities, wins first, then points, and the points served as a tiebreaker pretty much every time. And there's a couple times where we looked at it and there was like a sportsmanship tiebreaker, and that worked fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. With the 4 rounds, it helps you separate people out a lot easier.
40 players. The guy that won the tournament was the only one that did not have a loss or a tie. So I guess it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this, and you can speak to this because you played in it, but the 2 hours, we saw a couple people bumping up against the time constraints, but I feel like in early war, I don't have as much pieces to move around, so I've had no problem meeting the time constraints. I play quickly anyway, but in Team Yankee, even at 64 points, it seems like there's a lot of stuff on the table for you to move around. Am I wrong?
It depends on what you're running. If it's a NATO force, you're kind of struggling. You're not going to have a whole bunch. If you're running the BMP Horde or the BTR Horde or the Airborne Rifle US, you're going to have a lot of pieces. But if you're methodical and quick about what you know, knowing what you want to do, you can get it done. I was running a BMP Horde, and 2 out of 4 games, I finished with like a half hour to spare. One, it was 2.5 minutes to the end of the round when I pushed the guy off the objective, and then we've already discussed the final mission that was the slow play, which we legitimately finished 3 rounds and kind of started a 4th with 3 minutes to go.
No, I think in this early war tournament, I don't think I finished like a half hour early each time. But I mean, I played against people that know what they're doing.
Making bad decisions doesn't take a lot of time.
Thank you, Mitch. But Bill White's list plays fast. James Best Jr. knows the rules as well as I do, so he moves quick. So I got through, I think, like 7 turns in all the games I played without a problem.
Another thing he brought up just then is that if you're playing somebody that has a good reputation and they call you, you do something wrong and they say, hey, I think that's not right. 9 times out of 10, if it's somebody that you know is a good guy, just based on their reputation, you don't need to go into the rule book. Yeah, I think you're right. I got it mixed up, and you move on. And it's a 10-second delay. With other people, you've got to break the book out, go to the right page, and then read them the rule that you're telling them that the other 4 people that you've played that day already knew the rule, but somehow this guy doesn't.
I think actually a good illustration, because I remember in the V3 tournaments, there was a lot of looking up because you had 200 pages of rules, and it's like, oh, wait, how does minefields work? And I haven't seen that in either the V4 or the Team Yankee because they simplified the rules, and I think we should appreciate that.
I would say that the only rules looking I've done this entire tournament so far is say, what can a wheeled vehicle do on road dash? It's really just movement and cross-checks, and that's it. I'm just looking at a chart. I'm not looking at rules.
I think version 3 went out of its way to try to address every specific instance that could possibly come up. And by simply washing away a lot of the redundant stuff and just simplifying it, say, like, this is how you go into contact. This is how to base to base. I don't check the rules nearly as much as I do. You're absolutely right, Glenn. I don't check them as much. I don't need to.
It's more intuitive. You know, why we got Chris here, your first opponent said that he knew, you know, Chris is the reigning Masters Championship. We should mention that. And he said that, you know, he was a little intimidated playing against you. But he said he'd learned so much and that, you know, you were... I think he voted for, it was George. I voted for him.
This is my friend George.
And he really paid you a lot of compliments. And it's, you know, you look at guys that are ambassadors of the sport who are also at the top of the game. So, I mean, I thank you for being like that at these events, man. It's awesome. And that's why I really never get sick and tired of handing you hardware.
Well, and that's part of, I want players to be better. I don't want to spend the day running over baby seals. I want to have a fight. I want to walk away from the table knowing that I actually accomplished something. I didn't just beat up some guy that, you know, hadn't played before and doesn't understand how the game works.
Well, and I think
unless that guy's William White.
Yeah, but that's a big plus of Flame/Team Yankee. Almost every guy is so nice and a nice opponent, and some are better than others, but not like some other game systems that we've all played where you get the guy, he just seems to crave crushing you and, you know, and in your face and all that. And it's just such a nice crowd that we have here playing the Battlefront games.
I'd like to second what Mitch has said about Chris. You know, Chris is a top-tier player. He won Masters for a reason last year. I think we all can agree when we look at certain players, we place them in certain tiers. And I think I can say, and I think everybody would agree with me on Chris, when Chris goes against what would be someone to be considered a new player, Chris is already going to know how he's going to get him where he wants him, back him in the corner. But once he's back in the corner, he's going to say, hey, I noticed you missed this. You may want to do this. It's going to help you. He already knows he's going to get the 8-1, but he's going to help him and teach him. And afterwards, and this happened last year, I'll ask Chris or other players, what can I do differently? Chris will go ahead and volunteer and tell you, hey, I thought you should have did this differently.
Well,
I got to go.
Oh, you guys are starting the next round? Okay, well,
all right, best of luck.
Glenn and I will wrap this up, but we definitely had a great time in Historicon. We got to run the tournament. Before we sign off, let's talk about this game that we've actually played now the third time. It's Mark Walker's 65, squad level combat in the jungles of Vietnam. What do you think of this game?
Well, I really like it. It's got a lot of...
We're having some technical difficulties.
That's all right. It's a really interesting game because it's not a simple, typical board game where I move and shoot all my guys and then you go. It's got the variability of the cards. So you may be actually frustrated, which actually happens in command. It's like, hey,
yes.
I want that guy over there to fire. Oh, but I don't have the card to play to make him fire or make him move or whatever needs to happen. So the variability comes into, you really have the chaos of war in there.
And the NVA, VC, and US, and it has Anzacs too, they all play differently because they have different skills and powers, and it's a great game. We're going to have to pay more attention to it. Actually, we're probably going to get back to playing it now and sign off from here from Historicon, but we will definitely do some more in depth with it. But I had a great time this con. I'm exhausted. I want to go home.
That sounds like you've done it right then.
Yes, and we're going to turn it back to our studios, and No Dice, No Glory, live from Historicon.
Thanks so much for listening to our special podcast on Historicon 2018. We hope you had a great time with Mitch, Glenn, Tom, and the team as they covered Team Yankee Nationals, Early War Nationals, and an amazing interview with the folks from Blood and Plunder. For more wargaming coverage, don't forget to hit www.nodicenoGlory.com. And with that, we'll see you next time here on the podcast. Thanks, and have a great night, everybody.